the computer. That's running now. Oh, let's just go to sharing the screen. That way I don't have to see my big face. That's better. All right, so we are going to start today, and we'll see if we're going to meet on Friday. Normally, we would meet on Friday. But because of the whole COVID thing, it may be best to say, look, we're not going to meet on Friday. Do your work on Friday. And then see, that gives you a whole extra 50 minutes on Friday to do that. Now, I know in reality, that's not what happens with students. I understand fully that you wake up in the morning and go, this is what I'm going to do. And then you take a nap and you get breakfast late and you're like, oh crap, I didn't do any of my work, right? That's really what happens. But in the end, I can say, well, I gave them that extra time to do their work and they didn't get it done. So now it's really not my fault, right? Anyway, I'm joking. We're going to find out. Depends on what we go through right here. So I'll tell you in the end. All right, so we're actually going to take care of our differences. Differences between high school and college. Now, I added this in a couple of years ago because, well, we get a lot of difference. So there's probably half this class has already been out. They've done work out there. High school was a while back for them. They've already learned everything that I'm going to talk to you about right here. And then there's those of you that you just came from high school, and it's really good to know the differences to how college operates. Otherwise, you pretty much fail your first semester or don't get as good a grades as you could have because you didn't realize the world had changed overnight, right? So the first thing to talk about is this one. I actually put that there for me to remember. Dealing with stress. So what is stress? What is it? Nobody knows. You guys live charmed lives.
Rather too stressed out to give an answer.
Yeah, that's.
I know that for me, stress arises when I'm incapable of managing my life or the circumstances thereof.
Very good. Very good. Will we ever have, a major section of our life where we won't have stress? Yeah, I hate to spoil it for you. The answer is no. Right? You'll have portions of your life that aren't very stressful, but those will last, maybe a day or two. And then you'll go back to the stress. Like some people get so stressed, they push off the stress by getting in debt, by going and doing something where they're not stressed at all. And then they come back and they're like, oh man, now I got, $20,000 I got to pay off. Let's postpone the stress. It's strange that we do that, but we do. So kind of the point of this is when you make a change like this, if you've gone from high school to college, all of a sudden, all these things have changed. The stress level now has gone up. And learning how to deal with it, learning how to use it even to have success is important because it's not going to go away. And I wish I had saved this, but I saw one of those little memes that was like stress, what I thought stress was in high school, and there's this monster standing behind him, And then what stress was in high school, and it's this little tiny person. Stress in college, and it's bigger. Stress in life, and this. In other words, stress is there. And if you learn how to deal with it and use it appropriately, then it becomes part of your life that becomes a good thing because you're motivating yourself. And it's important, what I'm saying, is to identify, I'm under stress, and I can deal with that. Because I've talked to people that, they have a hard time dealing with it. I'm like, I don't know why I'm feeling sick all the time and I'm feeling run down all the time. I'm like, well, you're under stress. Well, I'm not really. And they start going down this list, right? It's like, yes, you are. You are under stress. You're just thinking that it shouldn't be bothering you, right? That's the thing we do. This is no big deal. This shouldn't be bothering me. Well, suck it up. Guess what? It's going to bother you. It's stress. It's going to happen. And you have to be honest about that. And if you are, then you can get over that stressful part easier. And I'm telling you that because that's what I've learned. I wish somebody would have told me when I was your age dude, you're going to be stressed. It's not going to go away too easily, but you can use it to your advantage. Because what does stress do to us in a positive way?
For me, honestly, like whenever I'm stressed about something like a test or whatever, it kind of motivates me to do better in that situation.
Exactly.
That makes sense, but
No, it does make sense because you're feeling stress and the natural response is, I need to get out of stress.
yeah.
And so if you accurately identify it, then you're like, well, I'm stressed because I have a test coming up. So what I'm going to do is study for the test so my stress level will go down. And people don't think of it that way, but that's what they do. And that's how you can use it positively. And some people don't ever think about it at all. And guess what happens? They try to ignore everything that's happening in their life. And then everything gets worse because now they failed the test. Now there's more on stake on the next test. Now I feel more stress, right? So action is the key to stress. You figure out what are causing the stress in my life. I need to act and mitigate that stress. Maybe you're worried about the fact that you don't know what you're going to do when you get done with your education. Well, that's part of this class, right? So I'm going to start to try to figure that out. And then your stress level will go down. You'll feel more confident about what's happening. All right, so enough about stress. Let's take a look at the typical high school format is the following. Lecture, worksheets, concise study guides, and tests. That's what happens to you. And it's a reason why it happens. When I went to school, it wasn't so much that way. But now they've tied this money thing to teaching, and that's really not a good idea, honestly. Right? So now they tell the school, your students don't test this way, we're going to take money from you. So if I'm a teacher in that situation, I'm going to make sure you do dang good on that test. I'm going to make sure that you have a concise worksheet and study guide to make sure you do well on that test. Now the problem is that lessens your ability to actually learn. Why is that the case? Well, because you're expecting it now. I don't need to listen to anything the instructor says in class. Later on, they're going to give me a study guide. And then I'll cram for the final, and I'll dump all that information and flush it down the toilet and move on to the next study guide that they give me. That's not something we think about doing. It's something that happens. And that's why I say when I was in high school, that wasn't so much the deal because they just trusted the teachers to do their job. And I'm going to tell you, none of my teachers are going to give me a concise study guide. Not a single one. They're going to say the biology test is coming up. Here's 80 pages. Figure it out. And so when I came to college, it's like, that's the same thing I've already been doing, so no big deal. But again, my biology teacher's pay wasn't tied to my success in biology. If it was, then he would have got paid a lot less because I sucked at biology. Poor guy. He would have been, dude, you got to do better, McBride. I got to feed my kids. Sorry, I suck at biology. So anyway, in the college situation in comparison, you still have lecture. A lot of times you're given writing assignments. Why? Because I wanted you to think about it, right? That's this class. I wanted you to think about what you're doing. And I should mention at this point, I'll mention it later when we get to the job stuff too. The reason why businesses like you to have a 2-year degree is because colleges function like this. When you go to work someday, they want you to solve problems. They want to say, here's a problem. It's yours now. See you later. They don't want you to come walking into them and say, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please give me a concise study guide over what I should be doing? They want you to look at the problem, analyze the problem, figure out the best method to approach the problem, get outside help if you need it. And so in college, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put you in a situation where here's a topic. What do you think about this? And that's more stressful. Oh man, what does my English teacher want? I use them as an example because usually if you just regurgitate what the English teacher wants, you'll get a good grade. So I'm telling you, I don't want that. I want your ideas and opinions. Then, of course, you get large study guides. Like in my 151 class, when you finally get the final for that class, there'll be a bunch of questions on it. I'm not going to give you, here your 80 question test is coming up, and here's an 85 question study guide. No, it's going to be double. If I'm giving you an 80 question test, you get 160 questions to study. Because I realize as an instructor, that is a really good way to make sure you know more information than you need to know. And then here's some really good differences, and I get some opinions from you guys on what you think. High school is mandatory. Your time is structured by others. I don't know if you notice that, but when you're in high school, it's like you're taking this class, you're taking that class. You got one elective. You can choose these two. Jeez, thanks. So much choice. I don't know what to do with myself, right? You can count on parents and teachers to remind you of everything in the world. If they're interested in you being successful, they're going to remind you over and over again. Each day you proceed from class to class. That's what you do. Boom, 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 boom. Most of your classes are arranged for you, and you are not responsible for knowing what it takes to graduate. That's a big one. They're telling you what to do. You take those classes, you graduate. Piece of cake. The guiding principle on that is you will usually be told what to do and corrected if your behavior is out of line. Right? You're not spending enough time on that. We got that test coming up. Last time you didn't study hard enough. Parents at home, right? What are you doing? Did you get your homework done? Right? All that stuff's going on. In comparison, basically, in college, you're expected to take responsibility for what you do and you don't, as well as for the consequences. I'm sorry, you didn't study for that? That's too bad you got an F. Can I take it again? No. You should have known that you were going to take a test. So no, I'm not going to let you take it again. The world will start to fall apart for higher ed once they tie our money to your success. Because then we'll have to do the same thing high schools do to get paid. And that will be a bad thing, right? So you didn't study for the test. Now you want to take it again. I'm not going to let you. As an instructor, I'm basically saying this is life. If you had done this in your job, right, your boss would be going, that's one. You know, you got 3 chances, and then you're all of a sudden going to be let go. Right? So it's voluntary and it's expensive. That's one thing I wish we could change, is the expensive part. You manage your own time. You must balance your responsibilities, set priorities, figure out which class you got to focus on this week. Lots of stuff you got to do. You often have hours between classes. You got a class at 9 and I don't have another till 12. And that's when people usually don't do what they ought to do, right? Take the time and actually study so that when they go home, they don't have to. Instead, they just mess around on their phone or whatever. Then they regret it. You arrange your own schedule in consultation with an advisor. And again, when you're talking about something that's specific to our programs, you need to talk to me or you need to talk to Lydia. If you're talking about something that's general ed, you need to go talk to those advisors. You know, if you come into me and say, well, will this psychology count? I don't know if that psychology counts. I don't teach it. But the people down at the counseling department know. But if you talk to them and say, which computer class should I take next? They'll just stare at you like, I don't know. And so at EAC, all the different departments counsel their students. So if you have a question like, what am I going to do next semester? Or should I take that class this semester? Then you come see one of us. But that's up to you. If you don't do it, then you don't do it. Graduation requirements are complex and they differ from year to year. Not that it changes for you once you're in there, but like if you start this year, it's a little different than next year and so on. It's complicated. And I can tell you, if you've looked on Gila Hank, they'll show you your progress towards a degree. Has everybody noticed that? I'm telling you, when you go to another institution, you're not going to find that. It won't be there. You'd be like, where's that thing that EAC had where you could just click on it and show you you're missing classes? That thing is awesome. And they keep trying to make it better, and it's not something that all institutions do. All right, moving on, we're going to look at these guiding principles. So in high school, you'll usually be told in class what you need to learn from the assigned readings. So this chapter, right, and they tell you specifically what needs to happen. In college, it's up to you to read and understand the assignment material. Lectures and assignments proceed from the assumption that you've already done so. In other words, in 151, you really should be looking at that information prior to us discussing it. You should not be looking for my lecture and then doing it. It's better if you've actually done, because I've got those little open book tests. It's better if you've gone through that and then you watch the lecture or you're in class, because then you can say, I really didn't get this part. Or I'd like to know more about that because that's really intriguing. That's what we want as instructors. We don't want the reverse where you haven't seen at all what the chapter says. We talk about the chapter and then you go off and do your work on it. So in other words, it's reversed. Basically, this says you are responsible. You miss a class, you got to figure out what to do. You have to figure out how much time it takes. You have to do all that. Where in high school, that's pretty much told to you. The other thing they mention, and this always gets students that are like in high school, they're always like, whoa. In school, usually you take a math for an entire year. You take an English for an entire year. And in college, you take that same thing in 15 weeks. And I always have students that'll say, I can't believe that. It's like I've been wasting my time in this English class in high school. I could have got it done in half the time. Yes, but high school is set for the lowest of standards, right? We need to make sure everybody can get through that. Where in college, it's like, well, if you don't measure up, you need to figure that out. Right? You need to do more study time. You need to figure that out because we're going to do this in 15 weeks. And you're going to just have to cope with that. In high school, they're like, no, we got to make sure everybody understands this, so we're going to take a whole year to get it done. That's a big difference. So the guiding principle on the next one, high school teachers and college professors. High school teachers, in high school, it's a teaching environment in which you acquire facts and skills. College, the learning environment in which you take responsibility for thinking through and applying what you've learned. And the confusing thing is that this is not totally true, right? That's like breaking it unevenly. For instance, in my 151 class, you are learning facts and skills. I'm not asking you what your thoughts are on the computer. I'm saying these are the components and let's know them, right? So in college, we have a lot of those courses. This class is not one though, right? We're going to cover some material and I expect you to figure out, what does this mean? Where are we going with this? And again, that relates to what you have to do in a job, and that's why we do it. Testing. Testing is frequent, covers small amounts of material. I know you always hated that instructor in high school. Like, oh man, we only have like 4 tests in a semester. There's so much information, right? Usually in high school, again, they're trying to maximize your good grade because their pay depends on that good grade. So we're going to cover the small piece, small piece, small piece, small piece. We're going to test you over those small pieces. And in college, usually that's not the case. Usually it's like, we're going to have a test, boom, here's a bunch of stuff. Why do you think they do that in college instead of giving you a bunch of little tests? Why? Why in college do we just say, here's a big test? We're not going to take a test every week. We'll have a big one.
Because there's not time in a semester to go through every single test and then have retests. You just got to have all your knowledge in one spot and then test if you actually know it, because it's not financially based.
Yep, very, very good. Part of it is the fact that we've got 15 weeks, guys. I do not have time to test and then retest, and that's a ton of stuff we have to go through in order to do that. And yeah, the other part of it is that in life, when you go work someplace, right, you're trying to retain the knowledge that you have to do that job. And it's usually large chunks of information. It's not small chunks. And so we're trying to prep you for the fact that you have to take in a bunch of stuff when you go to work. And how you're tested at work is that you did your job right. Right? But you still have to take all this stuff in and then remember it. That's even true for what we would consider the simplest of jobs, like going into food service, right? If you've ever worked one of those jobs, this, boom, 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 boom. Here's 1,000 things we do every freaking day. Got it? What? I hope. I don't know. Right? They expect you to say, here's the big chunk of stuff you got to do. Do it. Not, oh, we'll start you out in this little tiny thing, and then in 4 weeks, you'll finally be capable of doing the job. No, starting today, you got to get it done. So, guiding principle though, mastery is usually seen in a high school level is the ability to reproduce what you were taught in the form that it was presented. So, I told you a bunch of stuff. Now I want you to write exactly what I just said. In college, mastery is often seen as the ability to apply what you've learned to new situations, to solve different kinds of problems. And then grades. What I want to mention on this is that, and they don't even have it in here, but I've seen this with, actually I haven't seen it with any of my majors, so I'm going to tell you that, like people that are coming into computers. I haven't seen it with them, but I teach my 103 classes, and the 103 classes are for everybody. And I have seen it there. So when somebody comes straight out of high school, sometimes when their grade is low, they'll come to me and say, is there anything I can do about that? And I say, yeah, get the work done. And that's not what they want to hear. Now, having had kids in high school, this is what they want to hear. Yeah, right now you got an F, but if you do these 3 things, you'll be able to pull a C. Sweet. So last second effort, I can do 3 things and pass this class. You can't do that in college. Right? My 103 class has 52 assignments. So you decide to do 10 of them, there's nothing you're going to do. You're not going to come in and say, can I do 3 assignments and somehow pass? No, you can continue to do assignments until you do pass. That's the way it works. It's not going to change. But again, there's only some people that have that. Don't want to draw too many conclusions, but I think a lot of them are in sports. And so, I have my son, he wasn't in sports. Gosh, he can do math like nobody's business, but he hates math. And so his scores would be like this. First 6 weeks, A's. The rest of the semester, F's. When you see that kind of activity, then you're like, you're not doing anything because you had A's. And now you've just gone to F's, right? And then go in and talk to the teacher, oh yeah, do these 4 things. And then my son would somehow pull a C. I'm a teacher. I know that that's not the way it works. Statistically, that's not the way it works, but it happened. And so it does teach people that, oh, that's the way it works. And then they get in college, they blow stuff off for 3/4 of the time. Then they come in and talk to you and you're like, what are you talking about? No, go do the work and then you'll get the grade. What? When did life change on me? Right? That's the attitude. So they don't really have much of that there. But I do want to mention that C is really the passing grade in college because of universities. So D is actually passing. That's always been the case. But universities won't take your D. So you have to get a C and then the university will take it. And that's really what that's referring to, is that here at EA, you could get a couple of Ds and you would still get a degree. But when you transfer that over to ASU or where you're going, they're going to go, oh, that's a D, we're not taking it. That's a D, we're not taking it. So they want to see the Cs. Right, they do kind of mention it here. It's that good faith effort. So lots of times in high school, it's like, you know what, they just really sucked rocks on that English assignment, but they worked hard. So I'm going to give them a B. And at college level, it's like, no, that you just sucked rocks. So you got an F on that. I don't care how much effort you put into it. It didn't turn out for you. Again, just like work, I don't care what you put into it. That's not what I wanted. You're now in trouble. And I adapted this from that actual document from SMU, if you actually wanted to look it up. But it's important to know. And I just covered the highlights, which is usually what a lecture does. And so we will briefly, because we're really new at this, take a look at what you have to do for the assignment on that. So there you know, right there in Canvas, you know that is the assignment because it's actually got points associated with it. And actually in this lecture that I did during the summer, I covered that information blow by blow a lot easier. So this is the assignment that you have to complete, and you should try to complete that by the end of this week. Think about what you've learned in reading about the differences between high school and college. Identify 4 things that you'll feel you have to change about how you approach learning to succeed in college. So I want you to look at that, especially focusing on this is what I have to do in college side, and say, do I really act that way? Right? Because we're all going to read it and we're going to go, you betcha, that's who I am. But in reality, we're not. So this is be honest, identify 4 things and say, you know what? I am not used to really scheduling my own study habits, and that's going to be hard for me to figure out because, you know, in college, like when I was in high school, study time for me was either in class or as soon as I got home. And then it was done, it was out of the way, and that stress level went down. So that's the way I did it. And then in college, you got those gaps. For the first year, I did not use those gaps right? I was just messing around. I'll go get a soda. I'll go do whatever. And then I'm going home and I'm going, man, I'm not finishing my homework in the same amount of time I did in high school. And then by the next year, I was like, I'm going to use those gaps to do that. And then that way, when I get home, I didn't have hardly anything to do. That's one of the things that I had to learn. So that's what I want to see here is, what do you think you're going to have to deal with in those challenges? Questions? Even better, comments? Comments about how awesome your high school life was? I was hoping
My
maybe.
last semester at EAC, and I wish I took this class my first semester. This would have been so much more helpful to know at the beginning.
That's very true. Like I said, when I developed this, I'm like, what should I have known? What did I want to know that I finally learned? Gosh, if somebody had just told me straight up, I would have said, yeah, and then just done it. But anyway, so that is the first portion. Now, I do want to recap on our course sequence, declare major project, and then we're going to take a look. We're going to get started on a little bit of careers, and then we won't meet Friday because we're doing good. Again, these are not laid out like weeks. We're going to spend on some of these 2 weeks. On some of them, it's a half a week. You know, it just depends on the material. They're just modules, right? So, course sequence, questions. Yes?
I'm not taking computer information specialist. I'm taking computer information systems, and even then, it's an AJEC that will get me to ASU. So when I submitted the assignment, all I really did was took the, I don't remember what it's called right now, the course guideline, I guess, from
yeah.
the Hewlett Hank account, and just posted that. And it was really just, this is what I've done so far, this is what I'm doing this semester.
Okay, the only thing that you need to add to that is, unless you're done this semester.
I'm done this semester.
Okay, then you're good. Because if there was something else like, well, I need to take this in the spring, I would want you to write that down. I want you to say, oh, this class will be done in the spring. And so that's it, and that's just fine. As I said, you don't have to do the course sequence I have there, but if you have no idea what you're going to do, then you're going to do the course sequence I have there, because it's like you got to learn how to do this.
And then you told us that we can So you handed out those
You can fill it out right there
and then give it to you.
and then give it to me.
I have that.
Yeah, so you don't have to fill it out electronically and make a PDF and upload it. You definitely can. But this is the one assignment you can just hand to me and I'll look at it. So again, what I'm looking at is that you take, and again, they have these for all of them. They have all this stuff. And it actually is really good. Like if you wanted to get a certificate while you're here, it's good to look at those. We talk about that in a few weeks, but they have a course plan for that because oftentimes you can get a certificate at the same time you're getting your degree. But anyway, so you're going to pull this course plan up and then you're going to either, I've seen people do it either way, you'll take the blank space down here and you'll write it out like this is what I'm going to take. Or you're just going to actually write next to it. Like CMP 251 is in the fall. So if you're in this situation, that means fall 2021 is when you would take that. And so right here, right next to that, you'd put 2021. It's that easy. And so then that way, what you're doing is seeing that you are completing everything you need to complete in order to get that done. And you know when you're taking them. Again, it doesn't mean it could change. It definitely could change. But at least you got that plan. And then copy it before you turn it in. And if you need to copy it before you turn it in, then when you're giving it to me, say, I need to copy this. And we'll go make a copy. You don't have to pay for it. Because I don't know how many times that 3 months later, somebody will be, you have my course sequence? Because I lost mine. And I need to know what to set up for next semester. So that's all you're doing. You can write next to it. And then just, write your name at the top if you're turning it in that way. So that should be, right, this spring only should be spring 2021. Yeah, you're just writing that down. You're in 100, so that would say fall 20 next to it. Of course, if it was me, I'd dump this all in a spreadsheet. I'm not joking you. I'd dump it all in a spreadsheet and make some columns.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I can do this spreadsheet. I don't have to, because, we discussed my issue. I'm transferring over from journalism, so it's just scattered everywhere. It's
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
I have to pick and choose, but yeah, now that you said, can I just do it on the spreadsheet?
You definitely can.
All right.
And then you can just upload a PDF of that. Or you could print it, sign it, and hand it to me. Yeah, like I told you, I was new to college. But by the second semester, I had figured out education at higher ed was a beast. And what did I do? Spreadsheet. And I'm looking in the book and I'm putting it down and I'm putting when I'm going to take it. So definitely you can use a spreadsheet.
Successful person.
That's right. And if I was wanting to take more time on that assignment with all of you, I would force you all to do a spreadsheet on it. But I got other stuff. So, all right. So we are finished with that, and we're going to start taking a look at careers. Careers is a lot more complicated. Careers has got a lot more stuff in it. It really does. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just take a look at some of the general areas. Jobs in IT, IS. So IT is information technology. IS is information systems. Means the same thing. Means the exact same thing. There are 5 main areas in jobs in technology. Programming. Right, so that's programming. You can take here C#, app development. She also taught Java last year, so she'll probably teach that again, because I think engineering students need that. So you can take several programming languages. Data services.
Yay.
Yes, and data services is a huge area. It's anything that deals with data systems. And every single organization in the world uses data systems. So it's massive. It's a huge portion. Data systems would be your HR system, your student information system, what classes are offered here at EAC. You think of any job, and you say, for instance, if we use the food service again for fast food, You know, there's things that they keep track of in that. And when you're working in that environment, you may not, why are they keeping track of this? Because it's in a data system someplace and they're pulling that information out to make decisions. So that's a huge area. You'll take access here. You'll have access in 103 if you're taking that. And that's just to introduce you to data systems. We'll look at pay and all of this a little later. Infrastructure design and support, that's networking, that's routing, that's switching, that's firewalls, which also leads to security. And then security is this massive thing. You can be a security officer for just data systems. You can be a security programmer for just looking at code to make sure it's secure. It gets into all of this, every single part. Yeah.
One of my old friends is actually in a data security job.
Yeah.
His last name is Bain, and I love just calling him Bain the hacker. He's on the red team. The way he described it is in data security jobs, there's two teams of hackers. There's the blue team, which is basically the job is to come up with new and creative ways to make firewalls and other cybersecurity things. And then the red team uses ethical hacking to try to get in, kind of like in a mock-up hacker war.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing when he says, so I did this one thing, he'll just use all this insane tech lingo to say he changed a couple of numbers and was able to get into the simulation system.
Yeah.
It's a very fun job, lots of growth potential, but you have to know what you're doing.
You have to know. So basically, if I had this viewed right, if you knew how to program, then you could learn the security aspect of that. If you know data services, you can learn the security aspect of that. If you know infrastructure design and support, networking, routing, switching, then you can do the security aspect of it. You can't do the security aspect unless you are an expert in those areas. And that's why they get paid so much money. And then if you're a person that is an expert in any two of those areas, let alone three, hundreds of thousands, if not up to 7 figures. And I'm not joking. And the reason I know that is because I used to go to all these trainings, and guess who's teaching those, right? They're making tons of money. And they know data systems, they know programming, they know how networkings function, and they're up there telling you all your problems. But again, you'd be layering security on top of that. So don't believe any of those commercials that are like, come be a security officer. It's like, no, you're not. Nobody's going to hire you. You're not going to go to school and say, I did this with security in school and get a job doing that. Nope. They're going to say, well, what do you know about networking? You got to know all that stuff first. You want to always have a job though? And then there's customer service, and that's where the Google IT support hits. And a lot of these, to tell you the truth, a lot of those not programming, data services and infrastructure design and support often start customer service. So in other words, you don't necessarily need to know everything in the world as soon as you walk through the door. You get a job in customer service, and then you're like, I really like this database service stuff, man. And you learn more about that, and then you move into that field. So that's the good part about it, is that it kind of grows with you. As you figure out what you want, you go and do it. You're not ever trapped. And then, of course, related to computing is engineering and robotics and biotechnologies, and those will come out of the engineering class. But obviously, they're heavily using programming, data services. I have a friend that works for Raytheon, and I never tell him this, but I want to, that he's a glorified programmer. So he's one of the few people in this world that knows the programming language that's not written down for the missiles. So all that crap you see on TV where they're hacking some missile, that's not going to happen because you can't even find the programming language anywhere. It was invented in the 50s. It's been expanded a little bit, and only people that get to that level get to learn it. And then they track everywhere you go. You know, there's certain countries he's not allowed to go to. He doesn't even know why. He's like, I can't go to Spain. Why can't I go to Spain? It's probably somebody who would steal you. I don't know. But what does he really do? Well, he went to school for engineering. That's what he did. What does he do? He programs missiles. That's what he does. So he's got this programming skills that he took during engineering. So that's kind of part of it. All right, so let's see, where are we as far as time? So we're pretty close on time. So I'm just going to show you Career One Stop and how to have a plan and Career Coach. So we're just going to look at it. Don't worry about actually doing something with it. We'll do that on Monday. We'll look at that on Monday. So Career One Stop is a website that's out there, and you'll notice that it's an org, and it has stuff for everything, right? So Career One Stop is basically, you want to find a career. Here you go. This is how to be successful. This is how to figure out what you want. It's got everything. The site's huge. So, I mean, the first thing is I just want students to know it's there. We're actually going to use it. You have some easy assignments over using it, but I want you to know it's there so that as you go throughout your life and you're like, gosh, I don't know what to do about this. Maybe I should check out Career One Stop. I did that when I was in school because it's a massive resource. Job search, I shouldn't have clicked on that. Forget that it pops open. We'll have you do a self-assessment. If you want to jump ahead, you can look at those assignments. Basically, you'll do like a little short assessment. It's just like those ones you did in high school, and they're like, you want to be a lumberjack. That kind of thing. You're like, no, I don't. Where did you get that from? But sometimes it's really good to actually see that stuff, right? It's good to say, well, why are they telling me that? And kind of evaluate things. And their interest assessment, skills assessment. But we'll dig into some of that. So that's Career One Stop. Now we have something here that's where I say, let's take an interest assessment. So we'll do that on Monday. We have something called Career Coach, and EAC pays for this. And it's nice. It's really nice. It actually is right on the homepage of EAC. It says Career Coach. Nobody uses it. So I show it to you guys because it's awesome. It also has its assessments, one that's short, one that's long. And then you can browse careers. So watch this. So I put in network admin. It came up with network and computer systems administrators. And it immediately tells me what the median salary is. It shows me how many want bachelor's degrees. This is the cool part. How many actual jobs out there right now are reporting we want a bachelor's degree in that, or an associate's degree, or a master's degree. So they immediately tell you, which is nice for you, right? You're like looking at it going, okay, so that's what I want to do. I'm going to need to get a bachelor's degree. Gives you a big description of what it is. And then it's got all the other ones. See, here's some computer network support specialist. That's the person that's working for the administrator, right? Right here. And then there's project management, computer and information systems. We see that again. This one's a little different. We'd have to look at it. It looks like
Why
there's
does it say
programming.
some college? How much is some college? It's not the bare minimum I can do.
Okay, well, notice something here. Look at the pay on that. Plan, direct, coordinate activities such as fields of electronic data processing, information systems, systems analysts, and computer programming. So this particular one is saying you got to know quite a bit. That's what it's saying. You got to know quite a bit. But I have noticed that anytime it says computer programming involved, it skews this. Because our number of programmers out there is like down here, and the demand for them is up here. And so if you can program, they're like, I don't care. Show me you can program. Yes, so you're hired. Right? Now that may change once more people go into programming, and then that shifts it around. But right now, I mean, if you like to program, yeah, you could get a certificate in programming here, which takes you like a year, and then try to go get a job. And as long as you can, in that interview, say, yeah, I know what that is. That's this, this, and this. Here's a program I wrote. Why don't you go to it on your computer? They're going to go, sweet, we want you. So anytime that's on there, the price goes up, and you'll see some college. We don't necessarily care if you went to school, as long as you can program. That's a high demand job there. So that's Career Coach. So you think, oh, well, they do kind of the same thing, but Career Coach, honestly, has some very nice statistics, and I'm just showing you the basics. You can actually look at different programs. You can look at these. So if we jump into this, it'll show us where the jobs are geographically. See, it shows that there's one annual job posting for this here in Graham County. So not a high place where you can get that particular type of job. You can put in a different zip code and they'll tell you, oh, this is how many jobs there are for that. That's tremendous planning. At this level, to be able to look and say, I think this is where I want to go. I wonder if there's a lot of jobs around here for that. You know, you can check it out. It's right there.
That is ridiculously user-friendly.
It is really nice. And that's Career Coach.
Why can't other job search sites be like that, where it's like, this is the salary, this is how many job openings?
Because this one we pay for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so EAC actually pays for that, and you get the chance to use it. And there's somebody on the data side of that, right? There's somebody that's data driven, and they're putting all that stuff in constantly. It's really cool. Man, I've got some problems. Let's do that again. Do it again. Yeah, dang it. All right, well, that's it for today. Finish what's in that first unit, and on Monday. So not on Friday. On Monday, we'll come back and we'll really look at the assignments for this one.
No class.
No class Friday. Do your homework.
I'll try.
Well, at least you're being honest about it.
Reading was shiny